Broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studio in Cumming, Georgia, it's time for Forsyth Business Radio.
And hello and welcome to another exciting episode of Forsyth Business Radio here on Business RadioX. I am your host, Amanda Pierce, and we are broadcasting live out of our studio here in beautiful Cumming, Georgia. I am joined by my partner in crime and also in business, Mr. Steve Cooper. How are you today, sir?
Thank you, Amanda. We're going to have a great show today.
We have got some awesome candidates. I let the cat out of the bag. We have some fantastic guests in studio, shall I say, today. And they are actually also candidates for some local seats that you might be familiar with. So it is with great pleasure that I introduce our esteemed guests, Mr. Byron Gatewood, who is running for a U.S. Congress seat here in Georgia for what was it? Something sixth district?
Sixth district.
Sixth district. Thank you. At least I said Byron.
You did say Byron.
I did. And also we have in studio Rupal. Come on, Rupal. Help me with your last name.
Vaishnav.
I wrote it down too. Also, he's going for a state court judge seat here in Forsyth. And I'd like to welcome you gentlemen to the show.
Thank you.
Thanks, Amanda. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. So we're just going to get to know you guys a little bit before we kind of dive into the round robin discussion. I'll give you both an opportunity to share a little bit about your history and about the seat that you're running for. And Byron, being that you're a returning guest to the studio, I'll start with you.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'll start with the seat just to kind of define that and then talk about me because ultimately the seat is more important than the candidate. So let's introduce that first. Georgia 6 is a really important seat in the U.S. House. It's the seat that Newt Gingrich held, Isaacson held it, Tom Price held it, and for the last few years, Lucy McBath has been in the seat. Now, redistricting post-census has sort of made her holding the seat untenable. She's not running for re-election in 6. She's jumping over into 7. So there's a gaggle of Republicans vying for the position. I am one of them. And so I appreciate any exposure I can get. Now, as for me, Byron Gatewood, again, is my name. I'm a East Cobber. So thank you for welcoming me to Cumming, Georgia. I appreciate that a lot. But yeah, happy to get around the district, which now does include all of Forsyth County.
Ooh, did you hear that, Steve? What did he say?
Forsyth?
That's how I say it. Listen, I got my hand smacked when I came to this area and I said Forsyth. They very promptly quit. They corrected me and said it's Forsyth.
Yeah, just leave
like
out
fur,
the
like
R, Forsyth.
You're in good company, Byron.
I'm probably going to keep saying
Let's say
it the same way.
Forsyth.
I'm going
Continue.
to pronounce all the letters.
Four.
But anyway, yeah. So as for me, I'm nobody from nowhere. You know, I grew up in a little bitty town with oldest of 5 kids. Went to LSU for undergrad. So all of the dogs that are listening right now, it's SEC West. It's not a rivalry. Don't even worry about it.
We got to say it. Go Dogs.
Oh, go Dogs indeed. Yeah. But I still say the go like an LSU person, the GEAUX, you know, so it's go Dogs. Yeah. So it's a little different. But anyway, I'm a career Army officer. So most of my life I've been bouncing around anyway. Lived in Kansas, lived in Georgia for a while before at Benning, Kentucky, Arizona. I spent most of my career in Eastern Europe, or in Europe, better yet. But Eastern Europe's at the fore right now. Did a lot of time in Israel. Moved to East Cobb for opportunity after business school. You know, took a job at SunTrust and doing big bank acquisitions and loans for public companies. Moved on, own a couple of small businesses now, and am looking to make a difference in DC.
Which one of your small businesses is a physical fitness facility,
yeah,
correct?
I own a gym.
And then I think you mentioned that your wife owns a travel agency?
She does, yeah.
I have a good memory.
And those are two, obviously, we'll get into it, I'm sure, maybe, but two businesses you really want to be in a global pandemic, you know? Those were great.
Especially the gym.
Yeah.
When they all got closed down.
The travel agency, when nobody could go anywhere.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Now, I want to spend just not a brief. First of all, I want to thank you for your service.
Oh, thanks.
And also, I want to give you the opportunity to share a little bit about your devotion to our country and those years of service, because that's one of the things that profoundly drew me to you. So share a little bit about the time when you decided to enlist, which was a pivotal time here in our country, and that was during the time of 9/11.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I, like, you know, everybody else, I think probably September 10th, 2001, saw the world one way. And I was a college student. I was living life like a college student, like any millennial probably at that point. And then the world changed fundamentally on a Tuesday morning, and so that was sort of the crystallizing moment for me where I became a grown-up, and for the first time in my life, I was scared and angry and really felt patriotic. I don't think I love America, and that's great. You say the pledge growing up, but I felt patriotism for the first time. And that's what led me to enlist in the Army National Guard. At the time I was a college student, so I wasn't ready to sign it all over and be a full-time soldier. But the lines went away really quickly there between what was a part-time, National Guard soldier and active duty, because we were at a crisis. And so rather than going right back to school after training, I went to Afghanistan after training. And had, I had the opportunity to be part of something really, really great, and we did something, we made the world safe for 20 years. And so that became a calling for me, probably my first calling in life. I've had a couple since then, I think, where I was really pulled to go do a thing, but I ended up getting back into school after that deployment, graduated, commissioned, and then spent my career, as an intelligence officer.
And you traveled all over the globe. All over. Turkey, Afghanistan, where else?
Everywhere. At the height of the Syrian civil war, if you remember just a couple of years ago when that was hot, I was kind of bouncing back and forth between a few hot spots. The Turkish border with Syria was critical. I got to work on actual border security there, so I know a little bit about what that takes. I think that's something, just as a point of reference, I'll take to Congress, is fixing the border through having done it before, and then worked with Israel, our friends in the IDF a lot. Their picture is always perilous. Israel is fraught with danger all the time because all their neighbors hate them. And so that's an important relationship for us in the region. And I got to work at the strategic level there. I've worked Eastern Europe hard. I was in Poland when Russia invaded and took Crimea in 2014. And so I was close to the events going on there. I've done planning around possible Russian incursions into Ukraine, which are no longer possible.
Yeah.
Those are happening and have happened for the past few weeks. So, I've felt like from a foreign policy and the things that keep us safe, that sort of perspective, I bring a little bit to the table, a little bit of experience.
I'd say you do. I want to come back and speak more about some of those points and how they connect to your candidacy and how you serve our community. But first, I'd like to give Steve an opportunity to kind of lay the groundwork for our listeners about Rupal.
Yes, Rupal, glad to have you here today.
Glad to be here.
I was reading your bio earlier, and I said go Dogs, so I don't want to offend the other half of our listeners with Georgia Tech. I saw you got a degree in mechanical engineering from Georgia Tech and a law degree from Georgia State University. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your family and your background and what brought you here to this stage.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me again, guys, and pleasure to be here. Byron, thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Absolutely. 9/11, before I get into my background, it was a defining moment for a lot of us. I was a prosecutor, a line-level trial attorney, and we were all looking for a way to serve in our capacity. I just had a 1-year-old, so I was starting my family, and for me, it was difficult to leave a job because we needed, obviously, to pay our bills and everything. But I felt my calling through the prosecution that I was doing, and we felt just connected with the community and connected with what we were doing in the larger sense. So, but you stepping up, that's amazing. So thank you so much. I always, like most folks, will remember where we were when we saw all that unfold, right? I was in the courthouse in the morning, ready for a calendar to put some bad guys away, and all of a sudden, America changed, the world changed for us. But anyways, so thank you. I've been in Georgia since '82, Steve. Grew up here and grew up going to Riverdale High School, and then ultimately went to Georgia Tech for my undergrad because you typically have the what they call the tiger parents. You've got to either be a doctor or engineer to be successful in their minds. And so my dad being an engineer, me being young and not knowing what I want to do, I said engineering seems like the right path for me. It's a degree that I believe that sets you up for a career in the future. So went to Tech, did apply to Georgia as well, but got into Tech first, so had to go down that road. We aren't much of a football threat anymore. 1990, when I was there, I think we got a championship. But after that, we've just been rebuilding years. So no threat to any of the Georgia fans there.
All the other college teams love playing Georgia Tech, Rupal.
That's right. For practices, right? But no, so I went from mechanical engineering to law school. Had a good stint with the Olympics in '96 in Atlanta. So I volunteered for a small country called Bhutan, where I was the designated driver or the chauffeur for the team. And we had all of 2 athletes in the entire Summer Olympic Games, 2 archers. So very intimate setting. So I did that for a while, and then I went to law school at Georgia State. I have the gift of gab, and so I couldn't think of a better career where I can keep people locked in the courtroom, where I have to talk to them and they have to listen to me. So I chose litigation as my specialty. I forgo the idea of a patent lawyer, because for a patent lawyer, you have to have an engineering degree and you can sit for the patent bar. And, of course, you can make a lot of money. I chose litigation and not the path of get rich quick. And so went through litigation training in law school, became a litigator, started my career as a prosecutor in state court of all places, prosecuting misdemeanor criminal cases. And I can get more into that about what state court does and whatnot.
So tell us here, you're running for judgeship in the state court seat here in Forsyth County.
Correct.
Tell us what kind of cases you would hear in Forsyth County for that judgeship.
Absolutely. Great question. So a lot of folks don't know what the difference is in our different court systems that we have set up in Georgia. So we have basically 2 trial courts. We have the Superior Court and the state court. We call them trial courts because you can actually impanel a jury of either a 6-member jury or a 12-member jury in state court. State court's jurisdiction is limited to criminal misdemeanor cases, and those are the cases that you would be, by statute, punished for 12 months or less in jail or fined $1,000 or less per charge. And so your jurisdiction is capped at those misdemeanor criminal cases. Typical criminal cases are your traffic tickets in Georgia, everything from a stop sign violation, speeding ticket, to DUIs in terms of traffic violations are misdemeanor offenses in Georgia. And so anybody can demand, and I've actually done these things. I've done a speeding jury trial. I've done a stop sign violation jury trial. And, of course, talk about colossal waste of resources. But, you got to do what you got to do. And people have a right, so you've got to honor those rights. And then you can have DUIs. Typically are the more serious traffic offenses, but you have a host of other criminal offenses like criminal trespass, shoplifting, possession less than 1 ounce of marijuana, and a host of other criminal cases that would come in state court. But equally important is you have a jurisdiction for civil cases, of certain civil cases. And so cases that are not being selected to go to a particular court, like the Superior Court, could end up in state court. And so it's equally important to know civil law, because the whole purpose, in my opinion, for state court being created and why we have one in Forsyth County and other metro Atlanta counties is because it's based on population and case count. And when you have that, whatever that critical mass is, the local jurisdictions allowed to get a county-paid state court as opposed to a state-paid Superior Court. And so that's why we have state court in Forsyth County. And, of course, our jurisdiction is the entire county because our judicial circuit is the entire Forsyth County. And so that's state court.
So, Rupal, all that being said, tell the listeners out there, what's motivating you for running for state court judge in Forsyth County?
No, excellent question again. Because of paying forward, giving back. I've been a lawyer for 23 years. I've been in county raising my family here for 14 years. And when we were looking for a place to raise my family, we found Forsyth County for 3 primary reasons. One was schools.
I knew you were going to say
right?
that.
You got to be that Asian or tiger parent, right, to go for schools. So we said schools important, and schools are important, absolutely are important. So schools were number 1, but safety and security was number 2. We wanted to make sure we could raise our families safely in a area where we felt kind of like what was lost in where we were, which is a small town feel where kids could go out till sunset and come back home for dinner, which we found that in Forsyth County. We were in a small neighborhood of 9 homes back then. And so we really were a close-knit neighborhood. And And then, of course, in terms of giving back to the community, because I developed roots here professionally and otherwise. And so when I got to a point where I feel professionally and personally I can give more, and instead of sitting on the sidelines, pay it forward, that's what I chose to do. So that's why I'm here, to give back in the most professional way and personal way I know how to give back, which is apply for the judgeship position.
Through service, absolutely. And that's something that both of you gentlemen have in common, is a passion for service. Byron, I'd like to ask you the same question. What is your motivation to run for the U.S. Congress seat?
So I think I can help. Boil it down really to that. I think I can help. We talk some about the military background and some of the things I've done in that role. It's not just, I was in the military, which I think is a noble thing in itself, and I'm proud to have served in that capacity. But the actual job, the intelligence world, border security, understanding America's place in the world, understanding the threats that we face, because I spent my career assessing them. I think that's valuable. I think that's going to be valuable in policymaking. The years I spent in the investment banking world on that macroeconomic side of the economy, understanding the regulatory environment, understanding the Fed, understanding that part of the world where billions and trillions of dollars move around. And then the other side of the economy, that Main Street mom and pop battle of COVID economy that we've all fought for the last couple of years, I'm really, really close to that too. And so I think from a policy making perspective, there's the sort of a confluence of education and real world lived experience, because I also have degrees in policy making and in economics and finance. So I think that I can just really be valuable. Republicans are in all likelihood, apart from some sort of pretty outstanding follow through between now and November, probably going to take Congress, probably going to take the Senate, which means we're not going to be in the opposition party anymore. We're going to have to make policy. We're going to have to govern, and so we're going to need folks in the seat who know how to do those things, who understand those issues. And I think I can help.
I'm curious because I know that there's a correlation between both entities that you're running for. I know that they're on two totally different levels, but they do kind of feed into each other. Rupal, the impact that you're going to be making on a local judicial level will absolutely have or set the stage for an impact that Byron will be making on a congressional level. Talk about how the two of you, should you win your seats, would possibly work together in order to reach a common goal, if at all, because I apologize for my naivety about the connection between your worlds.
No, excellent. So, it kind of goes back to Civics 101, right? The branches of our government. And for me, there is some correlation and areas where there's ability to work together in that sense is legislatures like Byron would enact smart rules and regulations and laws that allow the judiciary branch, which I would be part of at that point, to sort of enforce those laws. And that brings up sort of a great point in terms of philosophy. I am a firm believer in the separation of powers. I believe the legislatures should legislate. And so if there's a local issue that can be relieved through a federal statute or some regulation, they should certainly look at that. And how that translates, while my court would never have federal court jurisdiction because it's all local law, there could always be some sort of a spillover into local legislation or a local piece that could come out of that discussion that would be something that's worth enforcing in the state court level. A good example I'll give you, though it's not directly federal, I have done civil cases. I had a client who lost his 21-year-old son in a drunk driver who was illegal in our country, driving late at night in Savannah, and didn't see my client's son, who was changing a flat tire on the side of the road, and killed him instantly, 60 miles an hour. And the funny thing was that the prosecution down in Savannah, Chatham County, the maximum prison back at the time was 14 years for killing somebody with DUI. And he was clearly over the legal limit in terms of the alcohol content in his blood. And for me, as a lawyer trying to find relief for my clients, I couldn't understand on the civil side, the guy had no insurance, illegal, all these things, and you're trying to find relief for your client. But on the criminal side and just justice, all you could tell him was, well, 14 years and he'll be free. And a murder will get you, certain circumstances can get you life beyond parole or at least a lengthier sentence. And for killing somebody in a car with the DUI alcohol content was only 14 years back then. And that's smart legislation partnership, where if the legislation see that and see the sort of the skew results, that could result into maybe better laws on something like that. On a federal level, what's important is the Department of Homeland Security, or the immigration arm, could deport him at any given time once he's in the prison system and throw him back in Mexico. Well, guess what, guys? He came illegally under some assumed name. And so he's coming right back. And when you take him out of the prison system, he didn't even do 14 years. He literally got out because the federal legislation allows the Department of Homeland Security to snap him up for the right reasons. I get it. But he needed to do his time, in my opinion. So there's some opportunities for correlation where you could get some rules in place to say maybe the Department of Homeland Security doesn't pull them before they finish serving the sentence, but right maybe at the end of their sentence or something, so they do their time. Because this young man would go back to Mexico under a false name, will come right back in whenever he so chooses, and he'll be a free man without having any penalty to society or paying his dues to society. So I do think there's some correlations there.
Yeah.
Same to you, Byron.
Yeah, that's real. First of all, I just am so happy to meet a candidate for judge who doesn't think that judges should legislate from the bench, because that's a really popular position right now.
Right.
And so huzzah. But beyond that, our worlds would rarely, if ever, intersect. But the process of having, I'm going to say, smart people, ethical people, moral people, people who are invested in their communities and doing the job for the right reasons in various positions all over the government, up and down, local, state, federal, everything, elected positions, appointed positions, all the stuff. We're just better when those people are involved. When those people are involved in the process, we get stronger, we get better. And so that's kind of how I see it. Like there may never be a tangible example of when we touched the same thing, and that's okay. Because federal and state stuff is supposed to be separate.
Right.
And but just knowing that we would both be in the seat for all the right reasons, doing the right things, we'd be better for it. George would be better for it.
Absolutely.
Couldn't say better myself, sir.
Steve.
We always do something fun on our radio show, but before we get to that, we'll give both of y'all the opportunity to speak in this issue. I've read both of your bios, and volunteer community is a big part of what y'all do. Talk about that for a little bit, and then talk about specifically why should people vote for you. Rupal, go first.
Okay, thank you. Servant leader is how I like to explain my character. I have been giving in some capacity wherever I've been since college days. I was active in the college youth days, in the student government. I was in law school. I was my student. We call them SBA, Student Bar Association. I was a senator first year and second year, and I was the SBA president my third year for Georgia State College of Law. So giving back and being a servant leader is sort of been central tenement to my philosophy of how you should give back, because you've been blessed, and we've been blessed as a family. And so when I moved to Forsyth County, I continued that servant leader mental approach, I should say, to give back by being a volunteer in my kids' school, being a volunteer in food kitchens. I've also been a volunteer with the Bar Association. Wherever time allowed, I certainly want to give back. And more recently, I'm giving back by being involved in a couple of organizations here in the county that are more based on nonprofit philosophy and giving back again to the community. We're sort of passionate about child well-being index, or healthy kids, in the sense that even though we've been a blessed county, we're probably one of the richer counties now in the state of Georgia, and we've got this transformation from being one of the poorer counties to one of the richer counties. We still have kids who are feeling a lot of pressure for one reason or the other. Recently, I was in a meeting where we were looking at the Child Wellbeing Index, which is an index to see how kids are performing and what are the issues. And we're having issues from the north side where kids are just not performing necessarily for a host of reasons, to on the south side where kids are performing, but they're feeling the pressure of constantly being under pressure to perform, which is also causing mental health issues. So giving back, trying to give back in that sense, whether I'm elected or not, is something I'll continue to keep doing because I feel passionate about. You asked why they should elect me. I think there's sort of three simple reasons. One, as I've already alluded to, I'm a constitutionalist. I believe in enforcing the law and not legislating from the bench, number one, and that's important to me. Number two, I believe in experience matters. Experience is having done prosecution, having done criminal defense, having upheld the Constitution for the government, upheld the Constitution for individual rights, and represented businesses and individuals in civil lawsuits, and certified mediator. I've seen the gamut of things that I think a judge would see. And that's important because those experiences bring the person to making judgment calls that should be sound and reasonable. You've got to be patient, you've got to be calm, and give people their day in court, and be fair, neutral, and impartial. And I would deliver on all those things because I've got a well-rounded experience to do that. And lastly, look, I moved here because of schools and safety. I believe in keeping our community safe. I believe that we have to allow our kids to thrive, but they can't do it if they're not safe, if our families aren't safe. That's what I love about Forsyth County. It's essentially like a small community with the metro vibe to some degree, from the standpoint of we've got the best restaurants, we've got the best resources, we've got the best tools, and we've got this small town feel that I want to keep where we can keep ourselves and our community safe for each other, for my family and yours. And so I've got a simple message, and if people will give me a shot, I think I will do a great job.
Really quickly before we parlay that to my dear friend Byron, where can people learn more about your campaign?
RupalForJudge.com. That's www.rupal4judge.com. Not RuPaul, but Rupal.
I'm so sorry. Right? When I first met you, that's what I said. But you said I wasn't the first one, so.
Right. So Rupal is RUPAUL, but I had my name first, so it's RUPAL, so RupalForJudge.com.
Perfect. So. Byron, I want to give you the opportunity to answer the same question about why people should select you as their candidate. But I would also like to go ahead and put a pin. I want to circle back around to the importance of education once you're finished with your piece. Please go ahead.
So it was a two-part question, and I want to make sure I answer both parts. And the second part was, why should people vote for me? What was the first part of that question?
Just talk about your community service. You shared a story with me before we went online, involved with your different services and what you do.
Right. So service or volunteerism or whatever we call it, for my part,
servant leadership,
indeed. So the opportunities for where I have sought those roles have been places where I've been passionate. The first one really we talked about earlier was after 9/11. I said, I have to do something. And that led to, a whole career. I'm active in my church because, again, that's a calling. That's a thing where I have to do that. I'm commanded to do that, actually.
Literally.
They wrote it down. Yeah, it's a big deal. And then I spent the last couple of years after I left banking, we talked about the businesses I own. I spent the last couple of years having a day job as well, helping run a nonprofit that creates jobs for adults in the autism spectrum. And that's a thing that I'm passionate about. That's a place where I could help. I have a son. One of my children is delayed and has some learning disabilities, and among them autism. And so that was a place where I could help and I could be of some value. And then, running for office, there are these times where you feel equipped, you've been given the tools, you have a passion for it, and you step in, to that given foxhole to take and return fire.
Yeah. To use a military reference.
I get that one too from all the movies.
And then also, I guess, just to boldly ask, why are you the candidate for the position?
Yeah, so it's kind of the unique blend of expertise and experience we talked about before. I think that some of the boxes that I check are pretty rare in DC and rare in general. But it's even more rare to check those boxes and not have the additional, I will say, baggage of being a political figure. The last time I asked anybody to vote for me was like student body president in high school. And so I haven't done politics. I haven't been in politics. And yet I've managed to accumulate the resume of a somewhat seasoned politician. I know some things. I've done some things. I've been close to decisions. I've operated at the strategic level of our government. And so, I think I can help. I really think I can provide value in policymaking and insight into the threats we face, how the systems of our government work, and so on and so forth.
Just like Rupal said, experience matters.
It does.
Steve, did you have anything to add before we touched on education?
I always have the fun part of the program.
Go ahead, lighten it up for us. Lighten it up, and then I'll bring it back around.
Rupal, you have a lot of passions. And for those who don't know, both me and Rupal serve on the Forsyth Chamber board. Rupal's also on the United Way board. He has a lot of titles here in Forsyth County. But one thing we share is our love for AT4 vehicles.
Yes.
Rupal, tell us a little bit about how you love those vehicles.
No, I love it. So growing up, I've always been an outdoors guy. Steve and I actually connected on, I think it was something I was watching on YouTube about overlanding, I believe it was.
Yeah, that's correct.
Right. So my passion is to camp, to be outdoors. I enjoy just being out there. And obviously done primitive camping and everything else with family. Recently hiked the Zion National Park's Angel Landing Trail. So really enjoy. But what attracted me to AT4 is just that passion to keep going out there and having a vehicle that can serve my desire to explore. And with overlanding, eventually I want to get into that. So that was sort of the start of finding a vehicle, the AT4, that line that I just love because I think it can dish it out. It's my first full-size SUV, and I'm telling you, I love it. I love that car.
Are you still loving it with gas prices at $4.29?
I love it. I love it until they take that away from me. I'm all about environment and everything, but I just love being behind that wheel of that big old AT4 Yukon, and it
makes you feel good.
Makes me feel good, and I'm glad we're in a country where I can drive a big AT4, sir. So I love it.
While we're on the lighter side, Byron, tell us an interesting fact or something funny about yourself. And
oh, my goodness. That's a lot of pressure.
Well, then I'll just go ahead and ask you, what is your favorite dipping sauce at Chick-Fil-A?
All right, well, that's buffalo. That's easy.
Yes. How do you feel about the Polynesian?
I don't love it. The sriracha one, though, which is a word I can't say. So
sriracha.
Yeah, that's a good one, too. So I'm going to bring up one more thing, and this is not a funny thing, but it's a weird thing. But it goes back to sort of we're getting to know each other, right? It's a fun show.
Us and the other 1,000.
Yeah. Yes. All of our best friends behind those red letters that say on air.
Right.
Cool. So again, I feel called to do the things that I do. I feel purpose behind it. And nothing in my life is random, which annoys my kids because nothing's ever spontaneous. Like everything's regimented. But I bought a gym. I own a gym. We've talked about, our passion behind physical fitness, and the Army maybe instilled that in me, but I was an athlete in high school, so maybe not. I think it maybe just beat it into me. But having an outlet, because people are asking me on the campaign trail with 4 kids and a new baby and 2 businesses and yada, 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 like how I'm doing this. Well, the answer is pull-ups. It's getting up in the morning and going and like getting this out.
Yep.
There's so much stress. There's so much going on. It's a radio show, and then it's doing doors, and it's on the phones in the basement. And so having that outlet to keep myself centered and grounded and sane, where I can just put in the headphones, put on, the soundtrack to that workout and blast it out. Yeah. That is the kind of a key to my life right now.
Sometimes I like to work out until muscle failure because I feel like I don't get that out of me until my body and my muscles are physically at their point of exhaustion. And that kind of, I'm going to deviate, Steve, unless you have something to add to that.
Go ahead, Miss Amanda.
We were talking about fortitude, and I want to talk about the connection, because obviously in the leadership roles that you guys, not only as heads of your household, but as pillars within the community and servant leaders, as we mentioned, mental fortitude is very important. And Byron and I shared that we have a love for physical fitness and how that discipline and how that physical fortitude translates mentally. I'd like to ask you, Rupal, what you do in order to stay sharp for your family, for your community, and for the role that you serve within the community.
Yeah, it goes back to being outdoors again. For me, it's taking a walk. I don't run anymore with some physical limitations that you get as you get older. And so I used to do running and doing races and whatnot, but I do bicycling. And so for me, it's mountain biking. It's being outdoors, taking a walk. We're fortunate to have so many trails around here. Being in North Georgia, we have access to mountains. We have access to the greenways and whatnot. So for me, it's just getting on that bike and getting out there to keep healthy, keep in shape, and just that fresh air, man. You just find it that you can disconnect, like you were talking about the stress, right? I mean, being a lawyer, you sometimes internalize a lot of the problems that your clients are feeling. And it's just human nature because you're so connected with your clients because you want to help them. And you've got to find that relief valve. And for me, it's getting out, disconnected, camping where I can, turn off that phone for a while and just disconnect, kind of breathe, kind of get that fresh air and just decompress, come back, recalibrate, and come back energized. And I love it.
You said something funny, and you'll laugh at this, Byron, but you called it primitive camping. Yes. And in Byron's world, that's called an FTX.
That is.
Or recon.
Okay.
So are you familiar with what FTX stands for?
Field training exercise.
Yeah.
Okay, that's right.
And when my kids ask to go camping, I'm just like, no. I have
I've
good
done
camping
this
experiences.
for so long. Yeah.
So I'll tell you a funny story. When I was an early prosecutor, baby prosecutor, we had an investigator who had done the Marines, and he would always bring water, but it would be ice water. And, I was like, dude, do you never drink like just regular tap water or whatever? He goes, no. After the Marines and all the stuff he had to go through and the water was always so warm in the canteen, he never, ever again would deviate from ice water. So I can relate to that.
Cold goodness.
Ice cold goodness.
Amanda, we heard a lot about camping and outdoors.
I was going to say, tell them what you like to do. What do you like to do on that hobby farm of yours right here in Sawney Mountain? Tell our listeners, Steve.
Well, we're going to ask the Bigfoot question.
Well, you tell them first what you like to do. We're getting to know each other. Tell them about how you like to ride around on your tractor.
Kubota orange. That's what I bleed.
Kubota orange. I always say Kubota, but it's wrong. Kubota. And then also, he's got the Polaris. That's the Southern in him.
Yeah, the Polaris.
4-seater.
It's a 3-seater, but it fits me because I'm a 2-seater type of guy.
So you guys, we all have something in common, enjoying being outdoors to clear our mind. What were you going to ask? Steve, you have on your Bigfoot socks. Oh, so you came in ready to put your
So we're talking about Bigfoot
forward.
Raise your hand if you believe in Bigfoot or say aye. No eyes except for me. Okay, on to the next question.
Sorry, man. Couldn't go there.
That's all right.
No worries. I want to touch on education really quickly. I'm having so much fun with you guys. The time passes by so quickly, and being conscious of your schedules, we'll just chat for another 10 minutes or so, or for however long you guys want. But you guys are both family men, and something that drew me to you, Byron, is we are of the same era, I will say, and you have young children. Rupal, you also have children. I'd like for you to share a little bit about, and you touched on like school systems here in Forsyth, et cetera, about what some initiatives you guys plan on pursuing in order to kind of set the next generations, and I don't mean me and you, Byron, but your children's, those generations up for success, and to keep the world kind of, in a solid pattern in order to help them succeed.
I go first. So for me, I think it's all about responsibility. I've instilled that in my kids. Hopefully they'll take that lesson and reap the benefits. One of the biggest things I think as a judge or a lawyer or anybody of responsibility you can do is when you get a chance to influence your clients. And I used to always have this conversation with my clients where I said it's about the priority pyramid. And your pyramid changes and your priorities change depending on where you're in life. Sometimes it's your job, sometimes it's your family, school, whatever it is. But when I have that opportunity because they're in court and I had the chance to influence their behavior and talk to them, not talk down to them, but talk to them, it was always important, especially the young offenders, was you've got to be responsible for your actions. I want you to own what you do because that's absolutely important, not only as in education, but also as just a person of individual who has merit, right? You've got to own up to your mistakes. You've got to own up to your career path, own up to your goals. So I want to educate leadership in that context. I think we've gotten away from some of it where we expect others to either take the blame or do things, and it's about stepping up and owning up to your conduct, number one. Number two, continue to keep finding, as a local citizen, keep finding good leadership who are setting educational rules or regulations that make sense. We want to give people options that they can gravitate towards. It's not always college. I think tech schools are absolutely very vital. We've gotten away from that, and you can't find good help because people don't want to get into it. And I've seen folks go to college, especially for those for-profit colleges, spend a lot of money and come back with debt saddled to get jobs that aren't going to let them out of that financial nightmare. And so getting back to the grassroots, getting back to what made us the best place on the planet is what we've got to get our alignment back in and make, whether as a judge, whether as an individual, whatever, find those things and passionately pursue those things.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rupal.
Absolutely.
And same question to you, Byron.
Yeah, so I've got 4 kids, and 13, 10, 5, 2. And so my 13-year-old's brilliant. Aubrey is special. She's really, really great. She's really smart. She's really talented. And I've been really active in her education. I challenge her. I'm a quant by nature. And so I push on her with numbers, and I teach her different ways to do math because there's often more than one way to skin a cat on that stuff. You're an engineer. Yeah. I was a physics major in undergrad. So
6 calculuses.
I love math.
That's right.
And so pushing on her like that. And then I have a son who's got some more limitations, and so I learned how to adjust my expectations of outcomes as a parent to what my children were capable of. With Aubrey, the sky's the limit, so we're going to get there. With Buddy, his name's Byron also, but with Buddy, there are different constraints. He's going to learn different ways, so on and so forth. The younger two, TBD, we don't know yet. So that's kind of the personal, and I've been involved. Aubrey's rarely read a book that I haven't read, partly so I can talk to her about the literature, partly so I can pick up on subtext, partly so I can help screen things out because there's stuff coming through the schools that's not positive. And deciding to run for office in a lot of ways is when you get sick of saying, well, somebody ought to, you say somebody ought to do this or somebody ought to change that or whatever. And so deciding to run for office is like the culmination of the sum of saying that a lot. And so, the political side of education is about parental control. Especially going for a federal office, parental control, getting what we saw in Virginia that really flipped Virginia from getting bluer to a red state again was about, school choice, the stuff permeating the schools, the ideology and the indoctrination stuff, all of that coming through in such a big way. Getting control back in the hands of localities and parents is a big deal for me going into federal office. So as a active parent, as an engaged parent, and as a concerned parent / political candidate, education's certainly front of mind for me. I intend fully to go battle with the Department of Education in Washington, D.C., which I don't think should exist, and I'm going to tell them so.
Thank you for sharing that perspective, Byron. I apologize before I gave Rupal an opportunity to share where our listeners can learn more about his campaign efforts. Please do the same for yourself.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. My website is gatewoodforgeorgia.com, all spelled out. And Gatewood is just like it sounds, Gatewood. I almost Brian'd myself there. But yeah, so that's where you can, learn more about me, see pictures of my beautiful children and wife, who's lovely. Volunteer, contribute, because that's what campaigns run on, right?
Absolutely.
Oh,
yes, sir. It's a necessary.
It is. We were talking about that before. But anyway, yeah. So gatewoodforgeorgia.com. Thanks for the tee up.
Of course. And I have a really weird question because why not? So in your efforts, both of you, to drum up a buzz for your campaign, etc. I know, Byron, you've been doing a lot of knocking. Rupal, do you do knocking for your seat?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Knocking's allowed. What we're not allowed to do is endorse anyone or pay any political parties for obvious reasons. You want to revere the third branch of the government as a fair, neutral place where you come to solve your conflicts. But knocking, going to political events, those are things that we're allowed to do. I've hosted a couple of meet and greets. Mm-hmm. We've got a couple more events that are coming down the pipeline.
And I see you at chamber events all the time.
Yes, chamber events, networking events, just trying to get the word out, let people know I'm there. They see the funny signs, and they're trying to figure out, who is this Rupal guy? And I tell them, it's Rupal, and here he is.
And there's one right out front, here on on Triple Gap
all
Road.
bald-headed and everything, no wigs or anything. So,
Byron, tell us a little bit about something creative you've been doing to kind of drum up some attention. I know that you have been invited into people's homes where they've had large groups, and you've been able to speak to a captive audience. So share some of the interesting things you've been doing.
Which is really a great thing to do. Like, it's a really great way to meet folks. somebody I know in a neighborhood or whatever will kind of give me permission to host something at their home, and you get the word out through the neighborhood, and you kind of have somebody vouching for you that's a couple of blocks over or whatever, and that helps draw people in. And then, it's stump speech, meet and greet. He's a real person. They're really productive events. And I've actually got a couple scheduled for this weekend, which will be great. But yeah, so it's a cool thing to do. It's really grassrootsy and very personal. The groups are big enough to where they're productive. I'm getting the word out. I'm producing votes and hopefully some folks who leave there talking about me, but they're small enough to where people are comfortable with Q&A. Because if you're in a big enough room, if you're in a big enough room and you open up Q&A, people don't want to talk because then they have stage fright from the audience. Right. But in a group of 15 to 40 people or something like that, folks will typically ask their question, which is a lot of fun and gives me more reps answering tough questions because debates are coming up. Yep. Which is pretty great. And so the door knocking is such a cool thing because then you're meeting people right where they are and they don't have to hold back at all. They're really comfortable. You're on their turf.
Front doorstep.
And exactly. And so when you get in front of them that way, they really don't have a problem testing you out. And I think I hold up to scrutiny pretty well. I have some good answers to some tough questions. Mm-hmm. So it's been a really productive thing. Otherwise I'm calling lots of folks. I've got lists of veterans or lists of donors or whatever it is, asking for votes and money all the time. Yeah. It's crazy.
And I would add for the judge race, people are a little bit unclear what can judges say and do and whatnot. Obviously, we can't endorse on policy decisions, but we can talk about our experience. We can talk about our sort of general philosophy and sense of who we are or whatnot. On our website, we have a place where you can sign up for volunteers. You can also ask for hosting a meet and greet, or if you know of wanting to have me come out and meet your neighborhood, like Byron was saying, I'm certainly able to do that and meet folks on that intimate setting, and they can ask questions.
Very cool.
I can't answer legal advice, but I can answer general questions.
For those joining us live, it is the 23rd, and correct me if I'm wrong, gentlemen, the primaries are tomorrow. Or is it?
Oh, no.
It's not. Is it May?
May 24th.
Oh, gosh. Sorry. I knew it started with M.
May 24th.
It's close, Amanda.
I'll edit that out. Okay.
Ooh.
Hey,
started sweating there a little bit.
For those of you just joining, we are speaking today with our guests, Byron Gatewood for U.S. Congress, and also Rupal. I'm going to say it. You just wait. Vaishnav.
Yes, ma'am.
Woohoo! For state court judge. And Steve, do you have anything to add as our show is kind of coming to an end here?
Sure, just a couple things. One, I was feeling kind of down last week, and one of my friends, Leslie Page, with Sweet Bell Treats, brought me some cookies, the best cookies ever. You can find them at Sweet, BELLE, treats @gmail.com.
That's her email address, or that's her website?
Well, that's her email address. They're good cookies, trust me. I think her and my wife are trying to see how much weight I can gain.
Well, I got to tell you, I'm a little upset because you didn't bring me any of those cookies.
That's exactly right.
Oh.
And last, gentlemen, thank you. I don't think I've heard any better information for more experienced, intelligent, and leaders in our community than both of y'all today. We really appreciate y'all coming out and talking.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for giving us your time and for sharing your position with all of our listeners. I will give you one more final opportunity to share a closing parting thought or some words of wisdom. And then I'm going to pay homage to some of our partners. And we'll start with you, Rupal.
Okay. Well, our election is May 24th. It's a nonpartisan election for judges. I'd love to get your vote. Go to my website, look up rupalforjudge.com, and you can see pictures of my beautiful family as well. I'll say, not a politician, lawyer primary, but you learn a lot, and you learn that this whole process, it's a family-oriented process, and I wouldn't be able to do this without the support of my family. And so my wife, my kids are all in it. They understand what I have to do because I'm not spending hours at home right now because I'm out about meeting people. I love meeting people, but give me a shot. I think you'll find that I've got the qualifications and the experience that will usher Forsyth into the new future where we're doing it smart, we're doing it right, and we're doing it with the proper credentials in place. So, thank you.
I like that. Good word, usher.
Thank you.
And for yourself, Byron.
Yeah, thanks. Well, first of all, once again, Amanda, Steve, thank you so much for the opportunity to come on and, share my story and get out there a little bit. Rupal, thanks for being my
my pleasure.
Guest today.
Yes, my pleasure.
Right. But yeah, again, it's, Gatewood for Georgia. Go to my website. Go to all the websites. This is a crowded Republican primary. There are 9 candidates running in this race. One of us is going to represent the 6th District of Georgia in the U.S. Congress. That's a big deal, and every election cycle is important, and every election cycle is the most important one. And I don't know how true that is from cycle to cycle, but it is important. This is our seat. And so vote smart, pay attention. May 24th is the election. That's the election where people are going to vote on the Senate, the governor, all of these things. And frankly, the U.S. House and judge races are not the first thing on people's minds, but they're as important as everything else. So yeah, visit all the websites, learn all you can, and just vote smart.
I like that you said that because I think my dad always used to tell me, inform yourself first. If you're uninformed, then don't vote. There's nothing worse than an uninformed voter. Just voting on popularity.
Absolutely.
So thank you guys both for that. I do want to just say thank you to our printing partners at Brandywine Printing. They help make all of our studio dreams come to life, and you can find them on the internet at brandywineprinting.com. And then also, we're seated here at this beautiful boardroom table that we got from Office Creations. You can visit them at officecreations.net to learn more about their design and furniture abilities. For my co-host Steve and for our wonderful guests, Byron and Rupal, I'd like to say thank you for joining us on Forsyth Business Radio. You guys can find our shows 24/7 online by visiting forsythbusinessradiox.com, or you can find us on your favorite podcasting application. I listen on iTunes. Steve, where do you listen?
Wherever Amanda tells me to.
He listens on Spotify. He has an Android. Where do you guys listen to your iTunes? Where do you listen to your podcasts?
The podcast app on my iPhone. Is that iTunes?
That's me too. Apple comes with it preloaded. It's the purple one, guys.
Yep, it's super easy.
And Rupal, same
iPhone.
thing.
Yep.
iPhone. Okay, so while you guys are there, go ahead and type in Forsyth Business Radio. Hit that subscribe button so you stay connected with us and you don't miss a beat. Again, for all of our listeners out there, we thank you for joining us. Connect with us on social media at FOCO Business Radio X. And until next time, I am your host, Amanda Pierce, and this has been Forsyth Business Radio.